Hi, my name is Sydney Jones, and this is the Science of Reading. So, first, before we get into this, we need to understand what is the science of reading. Well, the science of reading is reteaching educators how to educate students how to read and write. Um, Studies are constantly being done on reading and writing because we are realizing that our students are unable to read and write on grade level targets. And it has become such a problem that these students are just falling way below grade level at this point. So, in order to kind of get ahead of that curve, we are creating positive impact. We are really trying to help the students or educate the students how to read and write instead of just memorizing the words that are on the page. So it is effective reading instruction. So instead of memorization, instead of the teacher up there just reading the book, just reading off the page what we are trying to teach the students, and then having them read back to us, we are actually teaching them how to read instead of guessing, instead of thinking, oh, well, that's close enough, and moving on with it and telling the parents that they're doing fine. We are really making an effort to get ahead of the curve. And it's also integrating cross disciplinary understanding. So it is no longer just about English, it's no longer just about reading and writing, it is about cross disciplinary. It's about bringing those other subject areas that are also important in a child's life into reading and writing. So it is no longer English, it is English and math, English and science, English and social studies, or the arts. It is making sure that we are cross disciplinary, giving cross disciplinary understanding. Why is it important? In an appalling study recently done on fourth grade students across the board in the United States, we have found that our fourth grade students are unable to properly read and write. Instead, they are not comprehending or understanding, they are just guessing. And what's even more appalling is it gets worse with minority students. So our students are constantly, consistently falling below grade level, and we need to really make sure that we are getting them back up there. So it is getting ahead of the curve. Um, we are trying to learn how to effectively teach our students by using the science of reading. We are giving that to them. So we are also allowing them, because they're understanding, they're going to therefore be more interested in reading. I can remember as a young child not wanting to read because I just didn't like it. I didn't quite understand it. I didn't understand some of the words, so I just was completely turned off by it. And I've seen that in my own students. We are making children interested by giving them books that they are wanting to read and giving them things that they are able to comprehend and giving them on grade level as well as where they are at books. So we are also giving them connections with real world applications. How many times in a classroom have we heard the phrase, well, when am I ever really going to use this when I'm out of school? Well, I can say that I've used that on my own. I have said that many times, and I have been the reason why some of these kids feel that way. I know I have. We all have. Every teacher, every educator has been that way. And we've been asked that question. So we are giving them real world applications as to why the students are needing to learn this, because what they don't realize is what they're learning today is going to follow them for the rest of their life. If they don't understand now, the sad reality, the sad truth is that they are not going to be able to catch up once they are that far behind, unless something is done in order to really get a grasp on their education, on their reading, on their writing. So, how is that done? Well, it's done number one by phonemic awareness. So, phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. That is the science of reading. focusing on each of these. So, phonemic awareness is the ability to recognize and work with individual sounds in spoken words. So, um, for instance, in my fourth grade classroom, recently I taught a lesson that used the word effective. And the students kind of looked at me because I was like, hey, raise your hand if anybody understands what the word effective is. Well, they all raised their hand because they thought they knew. And I said, okay, well, can somebody please tell me what it means? All their hands went down and they kind of looked at me. And then I had one brave little girl raise her hand and she was like, well, I know what it is. Well, she did not. And found out that that was the same way across the board. So we broke it apart. What words are ineffective? Is it just effective or is it effect and then the suffix? So the students were able to understand what effect was, and then by that they were able to piece together the word effective. In younger grades, that's going to sound like, well, um, if I know what the letters are, I can put together and sound out THE, t, h is the. Okay, so sounding out each letter, making sure that we are breaking apart words so that we can better comprehend what these words mean. Phonics, it's the same thing. So a phonics is while teaching whole group instruction where students learn to write. So instruction can be taught in many ways. We have synthetic, embedded, analogy, and analytic. We as educators know that these different ways to teach phonics exist. However, the students do not. So phonics is the process of students learning to read through a relationship between letters and sounds. So that is whenever they are sounding out the words, sounding out the consonants and the vowels, and putting them together in order to make a singular word. Fluency. Fluency in reading and writing is the ability to comprehend at a good pace with accurate expressions. So if a student is reading, "The dog ran," they need to be able to piece together at a pace that they are fully understanding what it is that they are reading. Instead of sitting there for 10 minutes and sounding out each letter, fluency means that they understand the entirety of that sentence. Vocabulary. This is the reason why we still have things like vocabulary test. That is emphasizing the proper spelling and grammar in relation to reading. So if a student has a higher vocabulary, then the chances are that they are understanding what those bigger words mean and they are able to read at a higher reading level. So that is why we are teaching them the words in what we are reading to them, what they are reading to us. That way they understand what the word means the next time that they come. It's word recognition every single time. So this is for comprehension strategies, this is a quote that I took directly from the book. Comprehension is a complex process, often viewed as the essence of reading. Reading comprehension is intentional thinking during which meaning is constructed through interactions through text and reader. The content of meaning is influenced by the text and by the reader's prior knowledge and experiences that are brought to bear on it. Okay, so if a student is not understanding the entirety of what they are trying to read before and after, then they are not going to comprehend what it is that the author is trying to convey. For instance, in my fourth grade classroom, I recently been teaching poetry. So with poetry, I like to ask, well, what is it that we are reading? And we are reading a book about a dog. And so they tell me the story, and we talk about the author and we talk about what they're doing. And then I'm like, well, why do you think Jack would write this book? Why is it important that they are writing this book for their friends? Well, what about their friends? Why is he trying to tell them about this dog? So it is really making sure that your students are understanding what it is they're trying to convey, the author is trying to convey. Finally, we have the 5 block reading writing essentials. Okay, so in this model, this is in order to make sure that the students are able to get fully from what we are trying to teach them. So that includes 30 minutes of writing, 30 minutes of fluency, 30 minutes of comprehension, 30 minutes of word work, and finally 60 minutes of small group differentiating reading instruction. So that's going to be your RTI. That's going to be where your students are placed and at what reading level instruction that they are needing. So in writing, that is whole group instructions. Okay, so you start off as a class and you are giving them your core elements. That is, you are, as the educator, explaining and modeling every single thing that they are needing to be writing on the board. Okay, you're telling them how to do it, and you're telling them why you do it, and you're telling them when you do it, and what is the purpose of it, and really getting them thinking about it and why. So that is sentence fluency, ideas, and then voice and representation or presentation, not representation, sorry. So narration and poetry, that is whenever you are going to be reading them or reading to them and having them write exactly what it is that they're learning about. During that time that you are going to have them write letters and poetry or riddles and so on and so forth. Fluency is the time whenever um, they are reading, and it's going to be also whole group instructions, but you can split off into certain groups with a teacher. That way that they are able to read at a reasonable pace. Comprehension, that is 30 minutes of the lesson, making sure that you are fully teaching the students what it is that they are trying to understand, what it is that the author is trying to give to them. Do they understand what it is that they are reading? Um, this is word work. You have word work next. This is still the last step of whole group instruction. This is where you are teaching upper and lower case letters in the lower grades. This is where you are training children to understand those phonemic awareness, where you're teaching phonics, and you are bringing sounds into spoken words. And you are going to teach those high frequency sight words. So for instance, you have the, what, and he, she, and making sure that they are understanding why it is that they are using those words in that context. You are also teaching the CV, CVC, CVVC, so consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel, vowel, consonant. You're making sure that you're really focusing on the CVC or every single word pattern that needs to be involved there. So you are also focusing on tenses. So is the word, for instance, if I had a sentence and I said, the dog ran, well, is ran past tense, present tense, or future tense? Where are we putting those tenses into? And you are also focusing on vocab instruction during this time. Now, finally, during our RTI small group instruction and reading practices instruction, that is for 60 minutes. Every child should be placed into an RTI or a reading group to where they are at the level of their peers or about the same level as their peers into a smaller group with a certain teacher. That way that they can focus on what it is that they are needing to be reading. The same thing goes if they are doing individual work. So say you have a higher level reader, they are going to be focusing on making sure that they are reading at the time that they should be reading, at the allotted time. This reading block, these writing essentials here, should take 180 minutes every single day. every student every single day, except for the students at kindergarten levels, which do that for 15 minutes at a time. So writing for 15 minutes fluency, so they cut it in half. So these